morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and this Arcane Mage build has got me falling in love. Now, obviously, Arcane Mage received a lot of PvP-specific buffs, and I have been really enjoying the current pacing and output that it has. The build's linked in the description down below, and in today's video, we're going to be going over some gameplay and reviewing exactly what makes it so fun and so awesome. So the first thing about Arcane Mage that is just fun is just the animations. You just absolutely feel like the Needler from Halo when you ramp up. So we've casted our Arcane Surge, we've got our Touch of the Magic, we've got two Presence of Mind Arcane Blasts flying in, and then when you start proccing Arcane Orbs and Splinters and they start shooting out all at the same time and absolutely clapping and collapsing onto your opponents, you feel like a literal god in those situations. I love Alter Time. It's just a super fun ability for all mage specializations. I can pop it here, I'm absorbing damage, and then I can just rewind any damage that I take, which enables me to play really aggressive in our opponent's face at this point in time before continuing our pursuit towards this Affliction Warlock. Another thing that's fun is just using crowd control to annoy opponents. So here we Frost Nova the Ret Paladin, we've put him into a polymorph, and we forced him to trinket. Now, the next most important thing about Arcane Mage is using your shifting power. You want to use this to reset your Touch of the Magi and your Presence of Mind. This is going to be your big kind of cooldown burst window in order to force pressure back onto your opponents. So it's really important that you use shifting power to reset that. If you're not the target, if you are the target, using it to reset your shimmers is a really good idea as well. And you can see at this point, we're just proccing barrages endlessly. We have Alter Time up. We're tanking damage right in their face. Their team doesn't have a purge, so they're pretty much left helpless in this position as we continue to just ram arcane barrages down their throats here in round number 1 and continue to proc arcane orbs. And you can see that I'm mostly sticking to instant cast, but here I go for an arcane surge. We've got our Touch of the Magi coming up soon. Missiles are flying through. We're baiting cooldowns, and as soon as that Touch of the Magi Presence of Mind comes up, we're gonna be popping that bad boy. But I am making a mistake. You should shoot in arcane missiles before using Presence of Mind. I'm currently underway on a 2400 challenge for Mage, and I'm thinking I'm gonna do it on Arcane. Maybe not necessarily because it's stronger than Frost, but just because it is way more fun. We sneak a sheep in here onto the druid. We get Touch of the Magi ticking, but we're getting low. Our monk is in a fear, so we're going to trade out the ice block at 10% health, which is really important. Using ice block at around like 30% health when your healer is CC'd is a really good idea and tip that I should take more often because I often die without ice blocking. But here in this position, we're just ramming down more barrages, kind of keeping our distance back. And there's one tool in this round that I'm really not abusing, which is Evocation and Spell Steal. So you really do want to use Evocation. It ramps up a lot of your base intellect and gives you a lot of burst damage. I think I remember to start using it after this round, and we probably would have been able to win this one way sooner. But also Spell Steal. Look at these animations, just like 6. I feel like Krillin with Destructo Disc, just shooting out Destructo Discs and missiles flying in at the same time. It's a very satisfying experience as you're blinking through your opponents and basically double killing them here in round number 1. But moving into the next round, against Resto Druids and against Resto Shamans, because your mana bar is pretty much limitless as Arcane, this is one of like the main advantages, you can almost infinitely steal heal over time effects and Earth Shield. So as a Resto Shaman, Earth Shield is really valuable. So the fact that you can spam Spell Steal, you almost kind of hard counter these specializations. So if you're playing Shuffle and you get a Druid or a Shaman and you're abusing the Spell Steal, it's almost like a guaranteed win in those types of matchups, which is really nice to have that type of counterplay against two of the healers. Although Rest of Shaman's not super popular strong at the moment, if you do see one, it'll be really good. So hopefully, I think in this round, I remember to use Evocate. It's really good to use it kind of towards the beginning of the match when there isn't anybody around you that can interrupt you. But it's also, you don't want to use it too early because the intellect stacks, they don't last forever. So I'm kind of just poking through, waiting for them to commit to a target. I'm kind of baiting them to go me because, again, this is a team that has no purge. So I'm just going to alter time on their face, bait some cooldowns, blink away, try and kite them, and then alter back all of the damage. Now that I don't have alter, I got to be a bit careful. So I'm going to pull away and start kiting. And you can see it's so mobile. There's the Evocation, Arcane Surge. We're ramping up. Touch of the Magi. We've got our 2 instant blasts there with our missiles. As soon as you use missiles, it buffs the next 2 barrages or arcane blasts. That's why you want to missiles before barraging. So we missiles here and then lob out the 2 barrages, missiles 2 barrages, missiles 2 barrages type of deal, so that you're kind of weaving in, and it's getting me peaking up to like almost 1 million DPS in the opener here. And I think sometimes I've hit like peaks of like 1.4 million when I'm playing this correctly. And I'm just having fun against melee DPS. So like if you're a caster that just hates getting attacked by melee DPS and you're so frustrated by it, like I just did Boomkin challenge and Aflock challenge, so I've been trained like every single game. This was like a sabbatical where I'm just laughing at these melee DPS. I bait this warrior behind the pillar, Touch of the Magi, Presence of Mind, should have missiled before those arcane blasts, but we're still just proccing a bunch of arcane orbs, shredding both of them down. And I think it was at this time or close to this time I found Spell Steal. Now, Arcanosphere got buffed, so I wanted to try it, right? You can shoot it through the pillar. I don't think it hits hard enough to justify. I think that like Ice Wall or even Ring of Fire are likely going to be better options. It was funny. I tried to get like a kill when someone was hiding behind the pillar with it one time, but it doesn't seem like Arcanosphere is really going to be the play, even despite the buffs that came through it. But everything else on the kit seems really good. We're moving closer to the Druid here. I want to try and land a counter spell if I can, but I'm also just mashing Spell Steal. And you can see on the target here, we're tracking the heal over time effects here underneath their frame. And I can just take all of them. Munch, 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 yum, 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 yum. Heal over time effects, taste yummy. I get the extra little bit of healing that it provides. It's not a huge amount. And they lose all their heal over time effects while my Warlock's dots are just ticking away. So we've blinked into the corner. Arcane Surge, Touch of the Magi, 2 Arcane Blasts coming in, missiles firing through, and honestly, if I had evocated before this burst, he'd probably be dead. He might be dead anyways. He's dead anyways in this position, but you got to be lining up your cooldowns, paying attention to Arcane Surge, Evocation, trying to sync those up. You don't have to all of the time. Sometimes it might be better because if the enemy has a cooldown to trade with Arcane Surge, then they might not have a cooldown to trade with Evocate. So it might not be the end of the world, but don't just like sit on them forever, especially if you find an opening to do it. And then Shifting Power is just your battery that resets everything. You really want to be aware of like, what could I reset at the moment? Am I resetting my Shimmers for mobility? Am I resetting my Arcane Surge? Am I resetting my Touch of the Magi? You want to try and get like as many of these cooldowns on cooldown, so Shifting Power gets more value per spell that you've put on cooldown. At the beginning, we just use our little Prismatic Barrier here, and we're just going to bounce around, tossing out a couple of barrages to snare incoming attackers and kind of figure out where their footing is going to be. Strip off buffs with Spell Steal, strip off heal over time effects as well, like the Mark of the Wilds, and just kind of get your distance, get your footing. I kind of just lobbed a Touch of the Magi here on the Warrior, and that was kind of a mistake. I didn't even have a Missiles proc yet. Now we're going for Evocate. I got Arcane Surge off on the pet while it was stunned by the Ret Paladin. Really good idea is to just cast Arcane Surge on a pet behind the pillar, so that way you don't have to deal with getting kicked on it. That's been the best way that I've found in order to get that cooldown successfully off. But I definitely should have been more patient with the Touch of the Magi trigger here on the Warrior because he just leaped away from it immediately. But we use Alter Time as the Warrior connected, so he's got to get off me. Now it's over, so we got to focus on kiting, but this is where the fun begins. You just spam Arcane Barrage, snaring him, doing some instant damage, and spell stealing him and make him run away. And you can also decurse against Warlocks. Warlocks are really strong right now, really popular, so having decurse to just constantly remove their tongues and agony is also a really important tool. So I'm kind of just weaving at the pillar, avoiding dots. We get blink, we get charge stunned, so we're just going to shimmer away with Frost Nova, Barrage, get some distance, go for some hard cast here, just trying to get some procs. I should honestly be using my Shifting Power here instead of casting Arcane Blasts. I think that Shifting Power should be a higher priority. You can also use a cancel cast macro. I have escape for cancel cast to beta kick with Shifting Power, or beta kick with Arcane Missiles. I found a lot of people will kick Arcane Missiles, so you'll start the cast and just press escape instantly, and then they'll just kick it. You get precog, you can get every cooldown up that you need to. We got the Shifting Power up, we're locking out of fear. We don't want our monk to get crowd controlled. When you're playing with a Mistweaver, the most important things to interrupt are crowd control. So against this team, it's going to be Cyclone and Fear, because Mistweavers have really high throughput in healing, so if they're not controlled, they can heal through pretty much anything. But if they're controlled, then their healing goes pretty much down to ground zero. We got an Arcane Surge off. I tried to go for an Evocate. We got kicked on it, so we're pretty sad about that. But we got Touch of the Magi, and we got the Arcane Blast. Now, I should have Missiles before this. This is where I'm messing up my rotation. Those blasts would have hit much harder. I think it's like 20% harder. It maybe pressured this Druid to Ironbark a little bit sooner. We're going to swap off the Ironbark over onto the Warlock, cutting down through his Dark Pact Shield pretty rapidly. Look at those Arcane Orbs. Super fun animations. I really love the Spell Slinger. It's very fun in PvP. But we're taking a bit of damage. Blink back to the Monk's line. Kite away from the Warrior. Here we're going to use Greater Invis to reduce damage because the Warrior's getting uptime. You do want to try and buffer your block with Greater Invis, but they end up getting too much uptime. Block's going to be forced. We got our Shifting Power. I'm trying to sneak a sheep in, trying to deal with this, but we're going to Shifting Power to get our Touch the Magi back, and we're just going to pop that right away. Again, I should have missiles before this. Those two blasts did not hit nearly hard enough as a result of not missiling before it. It's going to be a little bit more complicated. I think that's probably one of the reasons why Arcane is a little bit harder to play. We got a Dragon's Breath. You want to Ring of Frosted Druid first, as they're in Shapeshift form. He's got no Trinket. We're going after the Warlock. I got Alter Time up, so even if I take some damage going in, I can just come back. I'm trying to knock and kind of push the Druid away as well. We forced his wall. I'm going to spam Spell Steal here, I think, on his wall. Maybe I just try and kill him through it, but honestly, stealing is hot since I'm doing reduced damage would have been a good idea here. We just switch off, it looks like. We're going the Warrior. Switching targets is never a bad idea. Arcanosphere through the pillar. This is what I wanted to try, because it goes through walls. The thing is that it hits like as hard as an Ice Lance. So it's like you charge for 4 seconds. Anything that interrupts you puts it on cooldown, and it doesn't finish. It doesn't hit nearly hard enough. It's funny. I like it. It's a super cheeky ability, but there's other ones I think that just give more value. Arcane Surge goes off. He's got Ironbark, but do we really care? We're getting kind of low. We get lay on hands in this position. We still got to kind of focus on defense. Anytime there's melee on you, you kind of don't want to just, if you don't have altar, you really want to focus on defense. Warlock's pushing in way too aggressively here, so we got to look to try and punish that, but he actually gets a fear. Our monk's going to trinket it, so interrupting the warlock here would be good. Looks like our warrior or ret paladin missed a kick, but it doesn't really matter. He's fallen even further behind. We're just blinking away from the warrior, trying to make sure that he can't touch us, and we're able to race down the warlock before the warrior is able to get to us. So I really like the mobility. You feel like Tracer from Overwatch, if that's the type of gameplay that you want, where you're kind of like blinking around, assassinating people, looking for cooldown resets, looking for opportunities. Is a completely different dynamic to that of something of a more stationary caster like a Shadow Priest or even Affliction Warlock, where you get trained and it kind of feels like you get overwhelmed a lot. I think it's mostly the move casting that's really nice about it, and the fact that you have knockbacks that are really strong, like Blast Wave in this build, with the talents that make it knock back a further distance. You have tools like Dragon's Breath as well to get melee attackers just instantly off of your back, which allow you to get through interrupts. And if you get the kind of like fake casting with missiles down, where you use Escape to stop your cast instantly on the cast to bait kicks, you're gonna be in a really good spot. Here I just go for Arcane Surge. I just kind of YOLO it, and I managed to get it. So I get the big opener here because the Shockwave on the pet. So I've got massive damage. Now I should have missiles before this, so did I do it? Yeah, missiles before it. Now double blast, and this is going to hit really hard. It forced the monk to trinket. I think that was even possibly a lay on hands. Yeah, it was a lay on hands from the ret paladin, which is obviously an instant full heal. We forced major cooldowns right from the start, and we're just pummeling in blast with altar time up. So I love just getting in with my cooldowns right at the start of the game with altar time, and kind of just blinking on their face, and then rewinding all of it back like Tracer would from Overwatch. Now I'm trying to get a ring down on this monk because he's kind of rolling around. He just walks into it, so I'm pretty happy about that in this situation. Just catch him in the fishnet. But we also have Prismatic Shield, I think is what it's called, or Temporal Shield, sorry, and I'm just going to pop it now. So you use Altar Time first, and then the next time you want to be aggressive, you chain it into Temporal Shield. We get a Blessing of Protection. I'm trying to steal that off for the warrior. Really important that you use Purge on powerful effects like Blessing of Protection if you've got like melee attackers on your team. And we're just continuing to pressure the warlock down, staying on top of the monk. I've got a counterspell available that I'm kind of threatening here, but I sneak into Sheep first, and I'm angling myself so these barrages can proc Arcane Orbs, and I'm angling so the orbs don't move into the monk and break the Sheep on the monk. You have to be careful because I always shoot in front of your character. So if you can face your character away from the Sheep target and send them the other way, then you'll avoid breaking it. We get a Sheep into Clone Chain, and we're still continuing to pressure. I also kind of just spam Arcane Explosion if I don't have cooldowns and somebody's really low on top of them to get Arcane Charges to make my barrage hit a little bit harder, and we managed to force the Life Cocoon, but I'm going to Sheep him anyways. We can kind of just go through the Life Cocoon here. So we're Arcane Surge, Evocate, and I just swap to the ret, pop Touch of the Magi, 2 Arcane Blast, big fatties, and that's a big one shot, baby. Like, you just feel like an absolute assassin, ranged assassin on this specialization. This is the most fun that I've had so far in this patch is on Arcane Mage, and maybe it's not as good as Frost or Fire, but I think it's pretty damn close. It is getting pretty close as far as competitive viability in that regard, and the playstyle and the animations are just really fun. So if you can kind of get down this rotation of the Touch of the Magi, palm, and using missiles before you shoot the 2 blasts, that's kind of the most complicated part. Like, I feel like every other class you kind of just press your cooldown and hit your biggest attack. This has like a little bit of an extra step before you get to do your biggest attack. As long as you get that step down, then your burst is going to be really crazy. So we got a Warlock Warrior again. We got the Druid on our team, so our spell steal is not that great, but our polymorph is really good. So we got spell steal to counter half the healers, and then we got polymorph to counter the other half of the healers. That's what I really like about Arcane. So we're gonna get a ring on the pet, pull it behind the pillar, cast on the pet, get the Arcane Surge off. Already got the Evocate, Touch of the Magi. I should have missiles before this. This is, again, that's the main mistake that I'm making for myself. That's why it's really good to watch your gameplay back as well. We counterspell the monk, and that forces on any resolve from the warlock. We got altar time up. So again, this is why I just automatically alter time as I'm shooting my damage, because I want to kind of stay posted up and do as much pressure as I can. And then after my cooldowns are over, then now it's time to start kiting. Blinking away with the Shimmer, using Prismatic Barrier to remove hamstring snares, and kind of focus on decursing and getting distance. If you get kicked on Arcane, you can drop Ring of Frost, you can Fire Breath, and you can knock back as well with Blast Wave. So even if you get interrupted, it's not really the end of the world. Sneak in with the Sheep now that the interrupts are on cooldown. You really kind of do need to be aggressive against Mistweaver monks, because if they're left free, like I said earlier, they're going to be able to keep their team alive very easily. So we're blasting Touch of the Magi here. That forces Life Cocoon. We lock the Warlock on Malefic Rapture. That means they can't cast anything. Slowing down some of their damage here for our Druid to recover, since we were taking a bit of damage there. I'm kind of just keeping my distance away from the warrior, pulling back, looking to try and wait for my cooldowns, touch the Magi in 27, Evocation in 15, Arcane Surge in 20, kind of just pull the enemy into a bad position. Bait a kick here with Ring of Frost. Now I can just cast Arcane freely. If it doesn't kick Ring, then his pet gets rung and I can cast Arcane. So I really like Ring of Frost against Warlocks that play with pets, because that can be just a really good tool to get through their interrupts. And now I see an opportunity. I'm going to Sheep the Warlock to bait the Monk to come in to dispel, and then I'm going to Sheep the Monk if he tries to move in. I don't know what ended up breaking that. It's really unfortunate that that Sheep ended up breaking. That easily would have been a trinket or some major cooldown right there. But now I'm trying to get an Arcane Surge off. So I'm trying to fake the interrupt, and I decided to just not go for it. And then he pummels nothing. So I guess I could have just casted it right there. So sometimes people get scared. They see the cooldowns, their weak auras start going off, and they start throwing out some interrupts when they definitely shouldn't be here. But we're taking a lot of damage. We don't have an altar time, so I got to focus on running away, decursing when you're in this position. But I think I just decided to block because they got a full fear. Our Ret Paladin didn't sank it until much later, so we're just going to chill in this. So we're falling a bit behind because I got Reckless standing on top of them, and it looks like our Paladin used not a Divine Shield on himself, so we're in a bit of trouble here because now there's no bop for me, and we're all kind of rotten down. So I'm kind of doing whatever I can at this point, which is just spam Spell Shield, Temporal Shield, Prismatic Barrier, Decurse. Just these are the only tools you can really do when you're this low health. I should have tried to line of sight that Haunt at that point in time. It's kind of tough choice. Warrior's close to me, Warlock's close to me, but this is kind of like an over aggressive push and cooldown mismanagement on the Paladin's front that ended up losing that round specifically. And I know you guys are going to say that I say the word specifically a lot, so I've tried really hard in this video. I think that was the first time that I've said it, and we're at like 10 minutes now. Actually, we're at 16 minutes of Arcane Mage gameplay, so I'm hoping you guys are getting a lot of value out of the tips here in this video. I'm just trying to give you my thoughts and ideas as far as what I'm going to be applying now to start having success. And I think I got up to 2100 in one day on Arcane Mage, and considering it's like this is one of the hardest specs to play in the game, I thought that was still pretty impressive. And I think that there's a way to make it easier to understand for somebody that is maybe even new to it, and that's kind of the point of this video, is to show you how fun it is, and it's not really that unapproachable if you get some these major basics down. Now at the beginning you just spam Barrage, get some missiles procs, get a Surge off, big combo. I'm not going to go for the Evocate here because I think I'm going to get Storm Bolted, so I'm just kind of blasting through and trying to bait stuns, and I'll use Evocate a little later. Alter Time. So now we can rewind. We'll blink back with Displace, get some distance, pull away. You do not want to stack up as double caster. You definitely do not want to do that. So I'm going to go for a Sheep here onto the Monk. He Revival immunes it. We blink away from the kicks, go for a Sheep again. We get the Sheep. And now we're using Prismatic Barrier to remove the slow, greater invis on the wings. And we're going to take basically no damage at the start. We're positioned on the gateway, drop down a ring for the Warrior. Again, just trying to bait interrupts, bait stuns with Ring of Frost. A lot of players see that and they're just like immediately threatened by it. So they'll use some major cooldowns to try and stop you. We also have Mass Barrier. So I use Shifting Power here to reset Touch of the Magi, Evocation off, Touch of the Magi. Should missiles before this. We maybe make the mistake to not missiles before. Blink in. I went for a counterspell, but he auraed it, so to Sheep him anyways. We get the Trinket with that, and look at all of the Arcane Orb procs, man. We're just procking on everything. I go for Arcanosphere here just to see how hard it hits, so it's kind of stacked up, and I mean, it was decent. Like, 1.2 mil's not nothing. Hey, I got Divine Shield. I just feel like it should hit a little harder when it feels like you're channeling up like a Spirit Bomb like Goku from Dragon Ball Z. And we're just baiting the Warrior away from the Monk, and this is pulling him into the open. And look, now he's getting interrupted. He's susceptible to fears. He's susceptible to polymorphs. So just pulling melee attackers across the map into open field is a really good strategy as a caster composition. So you can expose their healer and lock them down in crowd control effects. So now our Druid's rooting the Monk. I think he's looking for Cyclones. We get a Cyclone. We're trying to spell steal off the Freedoms, trying to limit their mobility, knock them away after you spell steal because the knock applies a really strong slow. And then we go for the Touch of the Magi. That forces Life Cocoon onto the Ret Paladin. We can just switch our attention right back onto the Warrior who hits a 90-yard Shockwave. We got Arcane Surge available. We're just going to lob that. We don't have Touch of the Magi with it, but it doesn't really matter. I just want to ramp up my damage here. I know that I can blast somebody down and do a tremendous amount of pressure. Go for the Sheep, drop the Ret, take the 5 and the 1 and juice up our MMR. So this is a playmaking spec. It's super fun. I love the animations, and I think it is viable. You just got to figure out how to play around these kind of like niche cases that the specialization has, and you're really going to start to bank out on this as an investment for your PvP class. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.